Hey everybody, it's Jason Blah here, and just sitting here drinking my morning coffee, getting ready to start my day. And I thought I would chat with you guys about something that I saw in my Facebook feed this morning. It kind of pissed me off because it was in my Facebook, not even on YouTube. Thomas Delauer, who's got a pretty good sized YouTube channel here, making a video. He had a video explaining how fruit is what's causing you to be fat. And that just pissed me off that someone who makes his living in the fitness industry could utter such nonsense that is demonstrably, provably false. And we look at epidemiology, he couldn't be further from the truth. Now, a bunch of people are going to say, Jason, you're not rip, you're a fat guy. Why should I listen to you about this? Okay, if you want to use that logic, then I would say I have a fair amount of experience with gaining fat. I happen to know a little bit about it. How's that? How's that for giving the justification for this of my ability to talk about fat gain? I'll go out on a limb and say a really skinny guy who's never been overweight maybe doesn't know anything about fat gain. Maybe they have no real world experience outside of what they've read in a book. So what we're talking about is fat gain here, guys, not getting ripped. There's a difference between knowing how to get ripped versus knowing how to get fat. And I know how to get fat. Overeat calories, guys. That's the best way to get fat. That's how you do it. And the problem is that you've got all these various gurus who want to blame whole foods of some type for people's fat gain. And I'm sorry, but that is not what's causing people to get fat. People are not getting fat because they're eating too much fruit. People aren't getting fat because they're eating too many potatoes. They're not getting fat because they're eating too much lean meat or because they're consuming too much lower fat dairy. Right, all these different things that people want to blame for every single fad diet, whether it's a ketogenic diet, hell, even vegans do this. They flat out lie about what's causing fat gain. They'll jump up and say, oh, animal products. It's not all animal products. You can get morbidly obese off of plants, and there are people who do. You know why? Because you can fry foods in oils. You can fry foods in oils. Even if you ate nothing but veggies and you fry it in oil, if you overeat calories from that, which is easy to do, you're going to eventually become obese. You could do that as a vegan. Nothing to do with the fact that it comes from an animal. And they just lump in all animal products. Because, animal products contribute because people are eating fatty, really fatty meats. If you're eating double bacon cheeseburgers and pizza every day, yeah, obviously. But, to go out on a limb like they do and then compare that to people who are consuming chicken breast, lean cuts of steak, low-fat dairy, and they even go so far as to try to pretend that excess protein turns into fat. Are we serious? We've heard Freelee on here saying the exact same nonsense. It's complete and utter tripe. And we have studies now looking at protein overfeeding, and we find that protein overfeeding, even in a caloric surplus, doesn't even cause fat gain. It actually breaks the rule because it changes your calories out. It has all sorts of things going on with thermic effects, satiety, that in fact, if you go on a really high protein diet, even animal proteins, it actually becomes far more difficult to gain body fat. It becomes more difficult. And when I mean ultra high protein diets, what I'm talking about where people are trying to consume 300-400 grams of protein a day, those people will struggle to gain body weight even if they try. But conversely, the people like her say, no, you can eat all these tons of fruit. Well, that's true, because it's also hard to get fat eating fruit. It's hard to get fat eating fruit. Whole foods are not to blame. But when we start looking at different studies, the foods that these people all blame, look at the studies on it, guys. When you go look at epidemiology, cultures that eat extremely large amounts of fruit have almost no obesity. They have almost no obesity because there's very little fat in their diet. And even though they're eating a lot of sugar, it has fiber with it. It's high in fiber, high in water. These are high satiety foods. These are high satiety foods. If people don't understand what I'm saying, you guys look at a whole watermelon. I'm talking a big watermelon, like a 14, 15 pound watermelon, right? How many calories do you think is in that thing? About 1,300 calories in a big full-size watermelon, one of those big ones. about 1,300 calories, and there's like no fat. And no, humans don't store carbohydrates as fat under normal conditions. You store the fat you eat as fat. It's just you can't go on a too low of a fat diet, or you start having its own set of problems. So the ketogenic people get it wrong. All these vegans get it wrong. Same thing with people who talk, oh, potatoes or whatever. When you look at potatoes, look at the satiety studies. Potatoes are one of the highest satiety foods out there. It's actually really, really hard to overeat white potatoes. In fact, people have gone on mono potato diets, which I don't recommend, and they've lost weight trying to consume as many just straight potatoes as they can every day. I'm not talking about frying them. I'm talking about even if they try to add a little bit of butter or whatever to them and things, they actually end up losing weight. Because most people tap out at about 2,000 calories of potatoes. They feel sick trying to eat more than that in a single day. And if you're obese, you're not going to be able to maintain your weight on 2,000 calories on a lower fat 2,000 calorie diet. It's not going to happen. You're going to lose weight. What about white rice, this horrible insulinogenic food that all these keto people try to push you away from? You go look at cultures that consume more than 50% of their calories from white rice, and what happens? Obesity, diabetes, all that stuff is absurdly low. It's absurdly low. So these people like Thomas Delauer pushing a lot of this keto stuff, they have wrong. I'm not saying ketogenic diets can't help you lose fat, but it has nothing to do with the fact that carbs are fattening, or even that the sugar is particularly fattening in these whole foods. It just isn't, and you don't see cases of societies that eat these foods having obesity. Same thing with the silly vegans. They'll say, oh, well, it was animal products. Well, it depends on what animal products we're talking about here. It's not because they're animal products. It's because you have, if people are eating a low fiber, high fat diet, yes, they tend to gain body fat. But that fat can come from any source. Deep fried vegetables, which yes, people will eat, and that would include even potatoes, are just as fattening as these high-fat animal products. And low-fat animal products don't cause fat gain because it's hard to overeat them due to the various thermic effects involved with ultra-high protein, with the satiety, and with the lack of fat in the diet. So the vegans get this silly crap wrong too to promote their fat diet. And of course, they're all going to come in the comments and argue. And I don't want to argue with you guys. I have no interest in arguing with you guys. Every one of you who come in my comments who are vegans and try to argue that for the science behind your diet, I'm going to eat an extra piece of meat today for every one of these that you guys do that in. I don't want to hear your shit because you guys are full of it. You guys and people like Freelee are full of it. And it's just ridiculous. So how are people getting fat? High satiety, calorically dense foods. And that comes from usually absurd amounts of processing and usually combining high fat foods with either really refined grains or refined sugars. What do I mean? Okay, pizza, that's a perfect example. It's really easy to get fat on pizza. It's extremely calorically dense. It's all white flour, and white flour by itself isn't even that bad, but it's white flour combined with cheese, combined with salt. So salty, fatty, and sweet things are what we tend to overeat. In this case, it's very calorically dense. There's an enormous amount of calories. Again, a 3,000 calorie pizza weighs less and is easier to eat than a 1,300 calorie watermelon, right? It's smaller in size. In total net size are pretty similar, about the same stomach volume. It's much easier to overeat. It's salty and fatty at the same time, so it stimulates your appetite. Double bacon cheeseburgers. We got 3 different types of high fat foods in there, combined usually with some refined flour. How about ice cream? How about cake? How about pies? All these things, right? These desserts or sweets. Everyone thinks they need to have dessert with everything. Okay, well, that could be why a lot of people are getting fat. Because we're combining large amounts of refined carbohydrates with large amounts of fat. Okay, that's your recipe. That's what's going to cause most people to overeat. That's what's going to cause most people to overeat. It's actually hard to overeat grains, fruit, lean proteins, vegetables. It's actually really hard to overeat those things. It can be done, but you have to make a real effort to do it. Not so much with this other stuff. And that's the ridiculous thing, is these people want to push all these diets where they're telling people, oh, this is what's going to cause you to gain fat. Just cut this whole food out and it's going to fix your problems. No, you need to minimize your calorically dense, low satiety foods. Right? Hyper palatable foods, foods that you eat and they make you hungrier after you eat the first couple hundred calories. We all know what those foods are. Your potato chips, your pizza, your French fries, and then when you wash it down with a Coke. Right? That's what's causing obesity. It's not fruit. It's not chicken breast. It's not potatoes. It's not even the dairy for the most part, unless it's combined with other stuff. That's not what's causing it, people. And anyone trying to tell you otherwise is a con man. All right, they're conning you. They're trying to sell you a fad diet. It's not based upon reality. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.